nasal mask, which just goes over the nose. You will use full face mask that coats the nose and the face. They're anatomically shaped. They have nice soft cushions so they don't create a lot of pressure around the airway. You want to be certain that...
Looks so big.
Yeah, this covers the whole face.
It's so big.
If you have to make sure that you have a place on your mask or in your tubing for exhalation to occur. For some of the home care tubing, it comes like this. This is a brand new one, actually. Or like this. And as you can see, your hospital ones come provided with a little hole here, and this is for exhalation. That's your exhalation port. Please don't let the nurses cover that, because they say, oh, I feel a leak here. I want to cover this. That's your exhalation. But in the home care, they come like this. And there is nothing there for exhalation. So you have to make sure that, for example, with this one, this piece of little equipment down here is a little, they call it a whisper valve. This is actually for exhalation. And then you will also have some of your mask actually have an exhalation valve on the mask itself. So part of what you have to do is make sure that the patient has a place to exhale. Otherwise, you're going to have CO2 built up inside here. And also, you're going to be creating a lot of that pressure, more so than you would want to. Another option are nasal prongs. Nasal prongs just fit, they see they're nice, soft nasal pillows. But unlike a regular nasal prong, they're large enough to fill the entire nostril and create a seal.
And then the straps just go around that?
Yeah. The problem with the prongs is sometimes if you have a mouth breather, they're not getting their full pressure because they're breathing through their mouth. Now this is just basically your home care equipment. CPAP and or BiPAP that you would have to set up in the home. You would have to troubleshoot. You would have to make sure the pressures are adequate before you set it up in the patient, on the patient. Okay, let's get rid of these things. I'm just going to move them out of the way for the moment. Now, I'm sure most of you are already familiar with this device. This is the Vision. This is probably the most common BiPAP equipment used in the hospital. There are actually updated versions of this now that are even smaller and more sophisticated than this one. The beauty of the Vision is it's electrically controlled, but you can also hook up an oxygen hose, hook this to your wall at 50 psi, so now you can give your patient a precise FiO2.
So it's pneumatic.
Just mostly it's controlled electronically. The only thing that's pneumatic is the internal blender.
But those are not.
Those are not. Those are totally electric. Yeah, so this can work without this hose. So it's basically electronic. But if you want to have the oxygen going in, then you can pick up your regulator.
So we have an internal blender, but we'll have an external filter on this one, right?
Always.
Okay.
Like Jason, he doesn't have oxygen.
Filter is here underneath this cover. This is where you would hook up your oxygen if you wanted to precise FiO2, your electrical input. This little part down here is actually for moisture. It's actually can collect any moisture that might be coming out of your piping system. Your on and off switch is over here, and it's actually behind a little door. You have to open this door to turn this device on. You can hook up recording equipment if it were absolutely necessary to do so.
What equipment? What type
Recording
of
equipment.
Recording equipment.
Do we have to open the filter or no?
Your typical circuit. It's just a simple one loop, a tubing length. Oh, I'm sorry. You should also have a filter on here. When you're going to set it up in the hospital, you want to have a filter on there. And this is your pressure line. Now for right now, I don't have it hooked up to oxygen, so it's only going to be delivering 21%. When you turn this device on, through a little door back here. You okay? Yeah. Can you guys see that?
No.
It puts itself through its own little test.
Should we turn the lights
That's
off?
it. Turn the lights off.
Oh, we can't see.
That's how you can't see the screen.
Can we bring it closer? Can we bring
That's about as far as it goes.
Try turning the light off. See if it actually doesn't.
Okay, the first thing it says here is to test the exhalation port. You have to occlude it. You have to hit this button. Make sure you're not covering your exhalation port, and it puts itself through its own little test. It says test exhalation port. You can either start the test or you can cancel the test over here. Start the test, and you can see it starts to do its own little thingy. And it's a very short test. It says test in progress. And now it's done. That's all it does it very quickly. This is testing the internal components, and it's also testing the exhalation port. If you were to have that exhalation port occluded, it probably would not allow you to do anything. And it tells you what to do from this point on.
And you just do that when you're setting the person up.
Anytime you're setting anybody up the first time, you're going to test that port.
What if it's like a code situation or anything?
If it's a cold situation, you're not going to be putting them on bypass.
Well,
You're
not
going to
like
intubate
you
them.
know what I mean? Like if it's like an emergency situation, you have to.
You
quickly
still
check
have to
them.
test
You
it.
just wanna test it. Okay.
You still
What
want
if
to
you put
test
them on
it.
and it's not
If
working?
they're really bad, they're either going to be on oxygen. If you're going to be bagging them, there's going to be somebody doing something to this patient that you still, because why would you want to set something up on the patient and not be certain that it's working?
Well, Hema,
Especially if it's a critical patient.
and Hema said too that you can manually ventilate.
As long
as long as
as
you want.
somebody's going to ventilate them or
You have
something.
2 people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but even if you don't have 2 therapists there, there's going to be a nurse.
You said you have to be spontaneously breathing to be on BiPAP.
Right. So your patient, you wouldn't be bagging per se, but if it was an emergency situation and you knew it is on this right away, you would be providing them with some other form until you do that. Look how long it took, about, 15 seconds.
Well, is that the only test that you?
That's the only test.
Oh, okay. I thought like with the 840, you have SST, and that thing takes like 15 minutes. That's why.
Yeah, it takes a long time, but this only takes that few seconds. Alrighty. We already... You'd already passed the test. Why do you want me to do it again? I don't want to do it again. Start test. You
Press
passed it, right?
monitoring to exit.
I can change the language. I didn't know that.
It says press monitoring to exit.
Okay, now we're done. This test complete. Yes, this one. Now, I need a lung.
That'd be me, Mary.
No. Yeah, that'll work. Setting your parameters. You have to hit the parameter button. And now you can set your IPAP by hitting the IPAP. It changes color, and then you can turn the dial to set it. Every parameter that you want to change, you hit that button opposite it, the soft key, and it changes color, and then you can change it. The same applies to your FiO2. Over here is something called rise time. Rise time is something that you're going to be looking at a lot when you start doing ventilators, because that's how fast you want it to reach that maximum pressure. It also gives you the option of setting a rate. Keep in mind, this is a backup rate. It's not like you're ventilating the patient. You're not going to give them a breath of 12 breaths per minute. You're just setting a backup rate to assist the patient. This is not just setting a full rate. And again, you can set the inspiratory time. This is giving you the mode. This is your waveforms. You have a flow waveform, a volume waveform, and a pressure waveform. Across the bottom down here, it's reading out exactly what you have. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Or you guys can come and play with it after.
There's an alarm button too, right? Is that what that upper right one says?
Right here?
Alarm?
You mean the alarm silence?
See,
That's
no.
everybody's favorite button.
No, but you would set alarms on this as well in case they stopped spontaneously.
That's right here.
Right,
It's
right
on the
here.
bottom. She was just talking
Right
about
here.
the bottom.
So can we go back to the rate? What would we set? I'm having COPD exacerbation. What rate are you gonna set on?
You're only going to set a backup rate. You're going to set something like 6, 4, 6. It's only to back up the patient in case they need it. It's not that you're going to, if they need to be ventilated, you're not going to put them on this. You're going to intubate them.
Right. So there's no formula per se.
No.
It's just we start maybe at a 10/5 with a backup rate of 4 to 6.
Doesn't the physician give
It's
you the
not
order?
quite that simple. Well, the physician, that's always a good way to think that they would,
they
and
don't.
hopefully
They
they
give you
will.
the pressure more
What
than
you
that.
need to know is what volume do
Okay.
you want your patient to achieve.
Okay.
It's not so much the pressure as the volume. Yes, they give you the order in pressure, but now you have to monitor what volume is your patient actually getting. For example, if I were giving Patrick a volume of 200, I wouldn't be helping him at all.
Right.
So that would be a total waste of anything, and he would probably crash and end up having to be intubated. So you have to make certain that you give the patient an adequate volume, even though the doctor is ordering pressure. You have to make sure that you're giving the patient adequate volume to ventilate them. And it's based on ideal body weight. Okay, so now we get into guesstimating how much your patient's tidal volume is, and normal tidal volume is how much? I'm sorry.
6 milliliters per kilogram. 6 milliliters per kilogram. Divided
5
by-
to 7, 5 to 7 mils per kilogram of body weight. So you would have to take their body weight, change it to kilograms, and you're guesstimating with this thing. Remember, you're not setting an exact tidal volume here. It's just how much you want them to achieve with each breath. Now, in order to affect your tidal volume, that is your IPAP setting. Okay, your IPAP setting is what's going to change your tidal volume. Your EPAP setting is kind of like PEEP on the ventilator, or it's like when the patient is breathing spontaneously, you're maintaining that EPAP pressure in the lungs at all times. I'm sorry?
Like oxygenation, right?
Oxygenation. Whereas your IPAP setting is what's going to give you that tidal volume that you want the patient to receive. And if you look along the bottom here, it's telling you what the tidal volume is. It's telling you the flow. It's giving you your patient's minute ventilation all along the bottom of, and this is for your documentation purposes, because you will have a flow sheet that you have to document when you set a patient up on this, and you have to document what all these settings are. You had a question?
Let's just say if Caitlin and I are both the same ideal body weight, both the same